let's get into your rotation rankings. Top 5 in baseball. Do you have any honorable mentions to start?
My honorable mention is the Miami Marlins. They have probably the favorite for the Cy Young right now, with the innings, which I do think is a stat. Not even a stat, just a basic thing that the nerds have convinced you doesn't matter for some reason, innings pitched. I think it absolutely does still matter. Not every team can count on their relievers the same way. It's nice to have a guy that can eat up innings. He's been great, as much as Joe Musgrove has been fantastic. I love him. Pablo Lopez, very, very, very effective. But the big thing with them, and they've got some prospects. Max Meyer just got called up. But for me, I think that they got a little bit unlucky here. I liked what I saw from Jesus Luzardo. I thought that was if they had to trade Starling Marte, your boy, I thought that was a good pickup for them, but he got hurt. And then Trevor Rogers has really regressed and let them down. The fastball not working the same. Maybe this is just classic sophomore slump, but it's because of that I just can't put them in the top 5 as much as I would like to. I really would. I'd like to, but their overall numbers, despite Sandy and despite Pablo, not picking up enough. And Rogers and the injury to Luzardo are a big part of that.
Yeah, and the Marlins, they get back Luzardo in a Starling Marte trade, and Luzardo looks like he could be a piece of the future. The D-backs, when they trade Starling Marte, they get back Caleb Smith, who just looks like he shouldn't be in Major League Baseball. So that's what the D-backs are doing with their front office and their move when they trade away All-Star. So I'm just not a fan of that trade at all. But I do like the Marlins as an honorable mention. I think I had them as an honorable mention too in my top 5. And now rotation power rankings. Like you said, Sandy, how did you feel about Sandy not starting the All-Star game? I felt like, listen, Kershaw, great season, great career. I thought it was borderline disrespectful. I care about the innings pitch. He's literally faced double the innings pitch, double the batter's face of Clayton Kershaw while having better numbers across the board. If I'm doing double the work and I'm getting better results, like how are you not starting the All-Star game? I don't care what hometown I'm in.
I wanted him to get rocked so bad, but he didn't. It said it was Gonsolin, which I'll settle for as a consolation prize. I got no hate against Kershaw himself. Mm-hmm. Sandy has been better. I will say at least that there's a little bit of justification. He does have the name value, and he has been good, and he's been good. He's had 2 times that he's been close to a perfect game. So at least this isn't a no offense to Adam Wainwright, but they put him because you know what I mean. Like at least it was
a situation where it's like
exactly. Like at least Kershaw has been really effective. And again, I know Padres fans go ahead and leave me angry comments that I'm Dodger loving. Sorry that I like to be objective every now and then, but at least that's what I'm going to say. At least it wasn't the most outrageous one we've seen. Trust me, they could have put in. Hey, for instance, I love him, but Joe Musgrove, that one would have been a little bit all right. I mean, you're not a Hall of Fame pitcher and whatnot. And if they put in Castillo or they put in, say, someone, Luis Castillo, right? Or Carlos Rodon, like those guys have been good. Don't get me wrong. But the name value plus he's been pretty good and he's a Hall of Famer.
I know it was in Dodger Stadium. That was probably the main reason. It was in LA, so he had to start that game probably. All right, number 5 for you, Javi, in your rotation rankings. Who you got?
It's about damn time, ladies and gentlemen. The San Diego Padres are number 5. The reason they're not higher is because despite the fact that their pitching is kind of basically the reason they've been able to sneak out wins this year, their overall numbers aren't the greatest in the world when it comes to the rest of Major League Baseball. And a big part of that is because of Blake Snell and Mackenzie Gore hitting a rookie wall. Not mad at Mackenzie Gore whatsoever, but Blake Snell, you got to figure it out, my man. And in a lot of ways, Sean Manaea, while he's effective, and I love the trade that they made for him because if he's your 4 or 5, I just think that that's incredible, right? I don't love him as your number 1 or 2, but as a 4 or 5, 3, 4, 5, I think he's awesome. But, you know, his ERA is at 4.11 right now, and he's had some games where I'm just like, dang, all you had to do was one more inning before you gave up the big home run. So hopefully Manaea can be a little bit better in the second half, but they're largely being carried right now by Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove, who's a Cy Young candidate at least, and Mike Clevinger. Maybe that's the big thing for them going into this second half. Yes, Blake Snell has been disappointing. I'd never know what the heck he's going to do when he goes out there, but Mike Clevinger, when he's on, has been one of the most effective young pitchers baseball has ever seen. I talked about ERA plus for the first 4 seasons of a pitcher. I mentioned this on one of my episodes. I forgot when, but he is the 5th best ERA plus for pitchers in their first 4 seasons since 2000. And the other numbers, the other guys that are on there is like Barry Zito, Roy Oswalt, like Clayton Kershaw. Like this isn't like a cherry. It's a little cherry picked, I'm not going to lie. But it is, you see that there is a lot of potential there. And in his last start, he was awesome. So that's the big wild card. But for now, they're number 5 just because of the Snell and the potential rookie wall of Mackenzie Gore.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. Padres cracked that my number. They were number 3 for me in my top 5 rotations in the National League. I think they were kind of close with the Phillies and Braves for me in the National League. When I did the rankings, I thought they were kind of all interchangeable. But I did think the Padres rotation depth was a little bit longer than those other two. When you mentioned the Mike Clevingers of the world, like he's come back this season and he's pitched pretty like efficiently and effectively, which I think has been a little bit of a surprise considering the injuries he's coming off of. And Mackenzie Gore has been, really effective as well. And he's been a bit of a surprise as well. Even though he's been a top prospect, we know he's, a little bit of shine was taken off of him entering the season after last year. So I think to have those two at the back end of your rotation after Manaea, Musgrove, and Darvish, like your rotation's pretty stacked. So I don't disagree at all with that at number 5. So number 4, Javi?
I was very tempted to put the Padres here, but for now I'm not. And it's one of those things where I might change it in a week, but it's the New York Mets. And it's because they have the biggest wild card in all of baseball when it comes to pitching, and that is Jacob deGrom. I know that they shut him down recently. That is why I'm a little bit tepid about this. But even still, you have Mad Max, Carlos Carrasco, who Cleveland Guardians just kind of handed in as a cherry on top in the Lindor deal. Yes, he wasn't as good in 2021, but maybe it's just because he was recovering from injury. He's been effective this year. You got Chris Bassett, Taijuan Walker. This is his second season now where he's showing some promise. So maybe it's not like maybe last year. Yeah, I know he suffered in the second half, but maybe he's turning things around. And remember, he was thought highly of for a while when he was with Seattle back in the day. So shout out to Taijuan Walker, Chris Bassett, like I mentioned. I think that they have to go forward just because if deGrom is there, you could arguably put them number 1, especially when it comes to playoffs, because you get to face those two coming out first. No one can match that. So they're number 4, at least for right now.
Yeah, if you want to talk about another what if, Taijuan Walker, non-tendered by the D-backs. They just let him walk in free agency. They said that's $6 million. No, man.
The amount of former Diamondbacks. I'm used to it being former Padres that always get brought up, and I've been saved from that. Thankfully, we didn't have to talk about the Mariners too much, right? Oh, Lordy.
You can make an all-star team with former D-backs the last 5 years because they've all been to the all-star team, which is crazy.
You can make all-star. You can make the all-millennial team if you took both of our team's former players.
So, that could be a World Series team. We should do that. Could be
a World Series, man.
Maybe we should do a draft of former D-backs and Padres of like the last 5 years. That could be a little fun draft pod.
Write that down. That's good. I really like that. Let's do that. We need to do a fantasy draft.
Yeah, see who can make the best team. Just based on former players.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Put that down right now. All right. It's coming at you, folks. At some point.
Put in the we'll put it in the chat. But who's the team that you just said they had a number 4? I already blanked.
The New York Mets.
New York Mets. Yes, I love the New York Mets. As you said, deGrom's a big wild card. I'm surprised they're actually not higher on your list because I think in the National League, I had them at my number 1 spot because I just think this is the deepest rotation in baseball because deGrom's a wild card, but if he's healthy, he's going to be good. And even if you don't have deGrom, like you're still going to have Max Scherzer, who is still a beast and one of the best pitchers in baseball. You're going to have Taijuan Walker, who was their all-star last season and is looking even better this year. David Peterson has stepped up and he's only 26 years old. Carlos Carrasco as like your number 4 starter is a beast. Chris Bassett as well. So if they do get deGrom back, like you got like a 6-7 man rotation basically of all dudes who could be number 3 starters or better in other rotations across Major League Baseball. So I just feel like from a ceiling and depth perspective, I thought the Mets rotation is the best. Now they're probably got more risk than anybody else in these rankings, but I'm taking that risk. I'm going to accept that risk because I'm going to have deGrom and Scherzer in my rotation. So who's number 3 for you, Javi?
Number 3 for me is unfortunately the Los Angeles Dodgers. Here's the thing. This is a classic case of it's kind of the same thing I talked about with their offense where, yeah, they've had some people struggle. Julio Reyes had struggled for a lot of this season, right? You had, what's his face? Walker Buehler, who I believe is still on the IL. He's been bad this year, 4.02 ERA, and the signs were showing early on, and he was like a Cy Young candidate for a lot of people. He's been bad, right? But Urias has turned it around, and the biggest thing is, yes, I know Kershaw is still a health thing, but Tony Gonsolin, Tyler Anderson, they find these guys that could come in and be good, and they get Dustin May a little bit later, the red, crazy-haired wonder that he is. Worth a stash in your fantasy leagues, by the way, guys, if you're in a deep one. I still have them up high because of the fact that they've still been effective overall despite some setbacks. Still first in WHIP, third in batting average against, and first in ERA. I still put them number one, even if I do think that there are some regressions coming for Tyler Anderson and Tony Gonsolin, but nonetheless.
Yeah, they're number 2 in my NL rotation rankings. And the Dodgers, I mean, like you said, their best pitcher, Walker Buehler, coming into the season, just on the 60-day injured list, not very effective. So what did the Dodgers do? They just basically turned 4 other starters into all-stars. And Clayton Kershaw was already a beast, but Julio Urias really emerging. Tony Gonsolin becoming everyone's darling to maybe start the all-star game. Tyler Anderson, like, I really didn't know too much about Tyler Anderson before the season. Like, I heard the name, but if you were asked me, like, give me any analysis on Tyler Anderson before this year, like I would have had nothing for you. There's no description I could have given you on Tyler Anderson. So the fact that this Dodgers rotation minus Walker Buehler has 4 dudes with a sub-3 ERA, it just not fair at all and just absolutely insane. Even David Price, who doesn't really start games anymore, if they need to bring him in, like he's been effective this season. If he has to maybe be a spot starter in the future, if someone goes down, like there's just a lot of depth and rotation there for the Dodgers rotation. There's a lot of depth there in that Dodgers rotation. So I don't disagree at all with your ranking. So who is next up?
Next up, I wanted to put them 1, but with some recent developments, I cannot. That is the New York Yankees.
Wow.
Second in WHIP, second in batting average against, third in ERA as of now. They're excellent. And take into account that Garrett Cole, while he has been good this year, he was an all-star. He hasn't hit the invincible, untouchable stage just yet, although he did have a 12 strikeout game against the Red Sox the other day. So maybe he's on his way. Nestor Cortez, my favorite pitcher to watch this year, outside of my own favorite team, of course. He's so fun. I love his little fake turn thing that he did at the All-Star game. Love that. But the big problem with this team is that Jameson Taillon, falling back a little bit, falling a little bit back down to earth. It was a great story. The Yankees rotation is a great story. I forgot to talk about that. Might be one of the best stories that's happened is Cortez, 36th round pick, Taillon coming off Tommy John, and Luis Severino not pitching in 3 years. And that's the last thing. Luis Severino getting injured. I don't know if he's going to come back right. This is a fear that Yankees fans have probably had for a while. And it stinks because he's a really good player and might have been a borderline all-star if not for getting hurt. So we'll see how that transpires. But for now, they're number 2. And you could also even talk me into them being lower just because of the giant question mark surrounding Severino and maybe potentially Taillon.
Yeah, and it's like the Yankees lineup and the rotation kind of similar because I think they're both kind of like overperforming expectations. Like the Yankees lineup has performed the best, even though I don't think they're actually the best team in terms of just being on paper champions. Fair. And the same with the rotation. Like you could I don't disagree. Like they maybe been the second best rotation in baseball, but in terms of on paper, once we enter that postseason, like I'm just not going to believe in the Taillons and Montgomerys. I don't care what regular season numbers they put up. When I see those guys in a postseason setting, I think I'm going to destroy those guys if I'm the Houston Astros or the Boston Red Sox. So we'll see how good that rotation actually is once we get to the playoffs. But I do respect them at number 2. They've been that good. And so I can't disagree, really. I just think once we get to the playoffs, that rotation could potentially get exposed a little bit. And sad for Severino. I mean, he's been put on the 15-day injured list. We'll see how seriously hurt he actually is because it's just been a whirlwind and a roller coaster ride in his career the last few years. But I like that. Yankees at number 2. They've been very good this season, both offensively and from a pitching perspective. That's why they have the best run differential in baseball. But who's number 1 in Javi Reyes' rotation rankings?
It is unfortunately the Houston Astros. The Astros currently, just because I've been doing this for the past few, they're third in WHIP, first in batting average against, and second in ERA. For me, the Astros, it's so funny because the past year and a half or so, they just had a bunch of pitchers that weren't great. They'd be mid-3s ERA guys, but they would never give up more than 3. And because their offense was so great, that would be enough for them to win. This year, their offense hasn't been as great. It's still been good, but not as great. And their pitching has gotten better. And a big reason for that is Justin Verlander coming back with a vengeance. It is possible that maybe he doesn't hold up the full way. I do have questions about that. But the most underrated collection of starters in baseball with Framber Valdez, the ground ball king, not the ground ball gremlin that goes to the Padres first baseman, but the ground ball king, Framber Valdez, Luis Garcia, Jake Odorizzi, maybe sneaky, could be a back-end rotation guy. Lance McCullers, if he comes back, he's very good when he's healthy, albeit that's not very often. And then, of course, Christian Javier. Of course I'm going to put a team with Javier on the first top of the mountain, Miller. Of course I'm going to. What do you think this is? Well, who do you think you are? I am. Come on. Come on. It's the Houston Astros, number 1.
And I don't mind it. I have the Astros is the best rotation in the American League in my power rankings because you just look up and down the baseball reference. I mean, Valdez, sub-3 ERA, Verlander, it's either going to be him or McClellan for the Cy Young. I mean, Urquidy's pitched to around a 4, but Garcia, Javier, Jake Odorizzi, all around a 3-5 or better. And like you said, they're going to get Lance McCullers back, who's been their number 1 starter or number 2 starter, depending on how you feel about Justin Verlander. So, like, this rotation is only going to get better if McCullers is healthy and is actually able to perform well for the postseason. So I love this Astros rotation right now. And like you said, like the lineup, I think in the Astros isn't as good as it's been in like the last few years, but the rotation looks even better than it's been. So this Astros team is just always going to be in the mix, like whether you like it or not, whether you care about their cheating scandal or not. This team is going to be like the Dodgers of the West. Like they're just going to keep bringing up dudes from the farm system. Yep. They're going to go out there and spend money, and they're going to make big trades as well because they just seem to have smart talent evaluators, just like the Dodgers. So I don't think you could count out these Houston Astros for the foreseeable future. Probably as long as Jose Altuve's in Astros uniform, they're probably going to be in the mix for a championship series at least. Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. The listeners don't know this, but we just did over an hour. I can't thank you enough. Javi, any last words or takes? I mean, you said a lot of words today, but any last thoughts before we depart today?
Last thoughts before we depart. League of Legends Arcane on Netflix is so good. It's not even funny. Byron Buxton is a great player, but people need to calm down with he's the only 9-WAR capable player. Talk to me when he has longer than a 60-game stretch where his on base is higher than 310.
Wow.
And the last thing, just please don't let the Dodgers get Juan Soto. Please. I would pay good money for that not to happen. I really would. I think I would.
Well, we'll see. At the time of this recording, Soto might have already been moved. Maybe he's on the Dodgers. Maybe not. We'll see. I guess you have to come back for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight whenever that is. Whenever I'm back from vacation, we'll be doing that. Javier Reyes, where can the listeners find you on all podcasting platforms or on social media?
Absolutely, man. This long 2-parter. There was multiple episodes, but
maybe a 3-parter, maybe a 4-parter.
Maybe a 4-parter. Oh, ladies and gentlemen. It is at Javipeno on Twitter, JAVIIPENO, and then at LO_Padres. Of course, if you're watching the YouTube, you see that all below. And of course, go hit up the homie Millard at Creator Thomas 24 and at Locked On D-backs. Let's get those subscriber numbers up. I wasn't wearing a great shirt for this crossover. That's usually one of my incentive to have people come on and watch the YouTube. I forgot this time. It just happens sometimes. They can see my sweet pants. Ready? Look at that.
Oh God.
I almost fell.
Yeah. I saw the chair going back. I got scared.
I almost fell.
Do you get workers' comp if it happens on the podcast? What happens there? Where's the liability with Locked On?
There we go.
There you go. Are those one-piece pants?
Yes, they are. The gum fruit, my friend. The gum fruit.
Gum fruit. Delicious, I hear. Delicious.
Yes, delicious.
Well, Javier, I think I've kept you long enough. It says an hour and 10 minutes here on the little tracker. So I'll probably let you go. That'll be the end of this Diamondbacks crossover with the Locked On Padres. Javi, thanks for hopping on today, and I'll catch you next time, sir. Deuces.